There is no scanning of the microchip. There is no attempt to reunite that cat with its owner. When we get back to the point of my honourable friend, that cats as well as dogs are valued members of our families, valued members of who we are as individuals, that...
James Daly.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Holloburn. And it is always the case that I agree with every word that my honourable friend from North Devon says, and I endorse every single word of what was an extremely powerful speech. I think everyone who has chosen to speak in this debate will say quite simply this is a good piece of legislation. It is a piece of legislation that is needed, and we would encourage the government to bring it onto the statute book at the earliest opportunity. But it does give members a chance, an opportunity to discuss issues related to the bill, which I think are important. As my honourable friend from Thanet North said, Conservative backbenchers will do nothing that will risk this bill going into the statute book. But we are able, I think, and quite rightly, to raise concerns and perhaps additions, such as my honourable friend just did, regarding why cats are excluded from the new offence of taking a dog without lawful authority. So I'd like to make a few comments regarding the scope of this bill. And perhaps it is my tender years in this place, and I look to the eminence of my honourable friend from Camborne and Redruth to correct me in terms of anything I am about to say which is wrong. But when I look, first of all, at the Conservative Animal Welfare Foundation, who I think we all received a brief from them, I'm told this bill is broad-ranging and includes farm animals and domestic pet animals. So I looked at that as a starting point, and then I said, kept animals, what does that phrase mean? Just take it away from the nature of the bill. What does kept animals mean? And I couldn't find a satisfactory dictionary definition of that, so I went to the long title of the bill. And the bill's long title is a bill to make provision about the welfare of certain kept animals that are imported into or exported from GB. So it would appear that the scope of this bill is in relation to the import and export of farm animals and domestic or pets. But that doesn't seem to be the case, because as we just heard, one of the provisions of the bill relates directly to an offence that can only be committed within the jurisdiction of this country regarding the taking of a dog without lawful authority. So what I take from that, Mr Holloburn, is that this bill presents an opportunity, not for many amendments, but for probing amendments, for the government to consider, which are not simply related to import or export. However important those issues are, they're important that we can look at the scope of the bill in relation to pets and domestic animals. As my honourable friend from North Devon has said, the reason why that is important is for all of us. My dog is Bertie. Bertie's my best mate. He's part of my family. And so that any opportunity I get to talk about animals and how we treat domestic pets is an opportunity. I think within this bill, the scope of the bill hopefully allows that. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. And therefore, Mr Holloburn, you would expect me to take advantage to reiterate my private member's bill that I've put before this House. It is now the third occasion that I've done that. And it is very nattily titled the Pets Microchips Bill. And I'm going to very briefly say why I think that this is something that is appropriate to talk about and appropriate to at least consider to be part of the provisions of this bill. Now, Gizmos Law, which is part of my bill, is a campaign that is run by a lady called Helena Abrahams from the Bury North constituency. Hence, I, as her constituency MP, have a duty to be here talking about that campaign. It's been going on for many years. Now, many members may know this or may not know this, but if a cat is found deceased in a local authority area, the general action of a council, not by all councils, because I'm sure some councils will be outraged at what I'm about to say, is that that cat is immediately disposed of into landfill. There is no scanning of the microchip. There is no attempt to reunite that cat with its owner. When we get back to the point of my honourable friend, that cats as well as dogs are valued members of our families, valued members of who we are as individuals, that does seem a rather a situation which we should at least look at and see whether legislation can be brought in to address that. So what Gizmos Law has done is working with a pet food company is able to provide scanners to all local authorities in the country to give the people who work for that local authority the opportunity to scan the cat to make sure to see whether there is an address, a contact address, and then to give the owner the opportunity to come and to pick that cat up, if that is what they want to do. If not, the cat will be disposed of. And I think at the heart of a bill that is about the best of animal welfare, that is the cost is not even minimal. The cost is non-existent in respect of that. But it is a positive and could be a positive addition to this. The second part of my private member's bill, of course.
I think he does raise a really important issue relating to what's called Gizmos Law. And I know that the department's looked at this multiple times over many years. Indeed, 4 or 5 years ago, it was a requirement for Highways Agency to actually scan, and that was an administrative requirement handed down by the Department for Transport. But does he not think that that may be something that could be addressed in a non-legislative way, simply by making it a condition of some of the grants that local authorities receive, that they actually show the due diligence to scan roadkill cats and dogs when they encounter them?
I think, as ever, my right honourable friend makes a powerful point. I would argue that legislation is the correct vehicle for doing that, putting a legal duty reflects what I would hope would be Parliament's view as to the need and necessity for such a condition. But I fully accept the point that has been made, and that may well be another way of dealing with this matter. Very briefly, Mr Holborn, to bring my remarks to an end, the second part of my private member's bill is Tuks law. Now, Tuks law, when I first heard about this, my honourable friend from Penrith and Border, again, with his learned expertise in this area, would, in different circumstances, would be able to correct what I'm saying. But in essence, if a person takes an animal, as an example, and takes it to a vet, and it's a healthy animal, and they say to a veterinary surgeon, and again, this is a very infrequent situation, I would like, for whatever reason, this healthy dog to be euthanized, or to be put down. That has happened in the past, and that continues to happen in infrequent cases. So Tuks law was or is a requirement for veterinary surgeons and veterinary staff to scan what's called the rescue backup, so the chip that's on the dog, which would highlight the previous, maybe the breeder or somebody else, to at least give that healthy dog an opportunity for a life, for a different set of circumstances, to whatever the reason it is that a healthy dog has been brought into a veterinary surgeon. We should be doing everything possible, if that dog is not a threat to human beings, to rehouse it elsewhere. And that is a duty to do that in respect of Tuks law. Now, my honourable friend and I have had the opportunity to discuss this, and we won't turn it into a debate in respect of that. But I think, again, for a bill, and I've talked about the scope of this, which is to address directly how we as a parliament, how we as a country view our beloved pets, whether they be farm animals, domestic or pet animals, it is an important matter that should, I hope, be considered in the round when I am sure this bill will be brought back, because this is a good bill. And I wholeheartedly support every comment that has been made so far. And the Minister, I've talked to our right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, about the private member's bill. And at any point, if the Minister wishes to discuss it further with me, I am there at any point to discuss it. It's a good private member's bill. It costs nothing, and it adds to the great strides and the very positive strides that our government has done in respect of animal welfare since we came into power in 2019.
Dr Neil Hudson.
Mr. Hollybaum. It's a great privilege.